Well, I couldn't see what I just filmed, but this is an introduction to coronasamas.press, and the reason I'm doing this is because our 1 year anniversary is Saturday. Now I'm trying to figure out where to put the camera, and thanks to Noah Clemens of Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, I have to do it like this because he said I had to. And when Noah says you have to, I guess you have to. I'm going to introduce the press in a simpler way than I normally do. I had two books that were due out last May, and before that, I had a book published by Riverboat Books called The Skulls of Istria. And although the book was published and looked nice and all of that, the only review I know of that it got was from some guy named Chris Villa, who I didn't know. I read the review probably on Goodreads. Maybe my publisher sent it, but I think I just saw it on Goodreads, and it was remarkable. It was a better review than I ever could have expected, and was also very, very intelligent. It was obviously by a well-read man. And so later I came to find that this Chris Villa was a booktuber, and probably anyone watching this, or, well, no, hopefully not. Hopefully a lot of you don't know him, because this is the strongest recommendation I could make. Go to Leaf by Leaf, and you'll find as good a book reviewer as you'll find anywhere. He's refined his presentation to try to meet the tendencies and needs of his audience. One of them is easy. They're all great books. If they're not, he won't review them. I don't know what he'd do if he read one that's supposed to be good and wasn't. I'm not sure, but basically his program is an enthusiastic and intelligent review of a wide variety of literature, mostly fiction, but also books about fiction, about literature and the literary world. Just yesterday, he had a review about George Saunders' book. Can't remember. A Smile in the Pond in the Rain, maybe? But a book about reading and writing that focuses on Russian short story writers from the 19th century. But normally he writes, or he reads and speaks about big books, little books, but great books. And so naturally, when my one maximalist novel, The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas, was due, we approached him and wanted to see if he was interested. He had also, before that though, he had done a review of my book with, I think, my favorite cover of all time by Jason Snyder of Staten Island. And he did a very nice review of this. This is by Maintenance Ends, an imprint of an Iowa press called Ice Cube Press. And so then I saw what Chris Villa would do on a video, and I was pretty amazed. And so naturally, we sought him out to do the review of The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas. Now, if you recall that time, that a year ago, the U.S. was involved in a corona crisis, and maybe it still is, but back then it was fresh and crazy. And for all I know, that may be the only reason that things turned out the way they did. which was that my book was not going to be properly prepared for the Chris Via review, which we wanted to bring the book out at about the same time as the Chris Via review. Another book that I had ready and that had been planned for publication several times along with Manifold Destiny is this one. It's Walk Like a Duck, A Season of Little League Baseball in Italy. Probably the fattest baseball book you're going to come across unless it's a large biography of Jackie Robinson or Babe Ruth might be as big. But it's a diary of my son's baseball year of 2018. And so these two were ready, but the publisher wasn't. And so I had to figure out what to do. I borrowed some money, and but the person I borrowed the money from wanted. He sent the money immediately, and but maybe he had second thoughts. I don't know, but he was suddenly from a. He's from a. He's working in a faraway place, and but he was suddenly making strictures about what I did with the money that I couldn't follow. For instance, he said only your books, but I had co-authors, or not co-authors, what I mean colleagues, friends in the business who were also potentially going to be stuck with Riverboat Books. And two of them were good friends, George Salas and Border Proper. And I had to have enough money and I did have enough. He gave me more than enough. But I needed, he said, I only want you to take care of your books because I'm doing this for you and your family. And I said, but there are, these two other guys and, actually just one other guy because I knew that there was time for Border, but George's book was scheduled fairly quick. So I said, I need to, also cover some copies of George Salas's book, and then I thought it all over, and I thought, no, this is just all wrong. It's too much money in the United States. The way to pay this back was, within a year, starting in November, and I won't be responsible. I mean, I am responsible, but it won't be me paying the money back. Hopefully, it's the publisher because I was going to give him money to publish the books properly. And I thought, no. This I just can't. I can't do that. And so I called my publisher here in Slovenia, and I told him this story. And that was on a Sunday. And on Friday, I had these two books in my hand, but we weren't sure what we were going to do at that point, so I had to come up with a press name, and the press is called Corona because of the coronavirus, and because we were going to try to put books out a little bit cheaper for, those in monetary trouble, and slash Samizdat. This one has the slash, I think. There we go. Because I wanted to still sell Eddie Vegas in the United States. So I put not for sale in the United States in here so that I'd have a chance of selling it to a big publisher in the United States. That still hasn't happened. But it gave me a nice name for the press. I like it, Corona Samizdat. And so then, the prices here are lower. I found a good printer, an excellent printer, a family of three, and they have become actually good friends. And and then I knew that I was at least going to have enough money to publish George Salas and Border Proper, and that was all I was concerned with at the time. But then I got a little bit of money for a book from a press in the United States. It's a long story, and it's a mostly good one. But the book didn't come out. But I did get money. And the first check I got, I was just jumping up and down because I thought, now I can publish David Vardaman. David Vardaman is the author of Angel of Sodom, and we've got another one of his books coming. So this was the third book that came out. George's wasn't ready yet. This was in late May. These two were April 24th. This was in, I think we got it ready by late May. And I really like the covers of all three of these. This, I think, is a rather powerful cover. It comes from the publisher of Riverboat Books, Peter Bellis. Did a very nice job with this cover. This was just a natural for various reasons. That came from a photo of another baseball father. When I saw that, I thought that is the cover of Walk Like a Duck. This, I just happened to send David Vardaman some interesting photos by an Ukrainian painter who lives here in Isola. And Vardaman saw this. He said, "That's the cover of my book." And that's the whole story behind this cover. And that, so I had three books, and I liked all three covers, and I thought, okay, that's got to be one thing we do with this press: good covers. At least, what I think are good covers. But the main thing is, it's the another thing I could do with this press is, on principle, make it a writer's press. I at first thought, well, I'll give the writers 50-50, And what I realized was that if I did that, I realized this after a long time. George Salas's book was selling very well, and he was getting to the point where he was going to get 50%. And I did the math on that, and I thought, well, shit. If he gets half the money that we take in, it's going to be very hard to keep his book on the shelf. And he was kind enough to agree to 25%, which is what it now is. Our authors get 25% once the books make up the printing costs. And depending on if there are excessive costs in giving author copies out, I also had the idea that you always give a lot of author copies, and so some authors got 30 before I started reining that in, and thinking, wait, 30? That's a lot, a lot of author copies, and I would be happy to do it in the future if we're doing really well. But I think the Jeff Bursey got that many. We'll get to him in a minute. George Salas got that many. David Vardaman got that many. And another thing I learned with Vardamans is that you don't need to publish 225 copies of an unknown book right away. I got a lot of these left, and he sold pretty well at the same time, and is about to get his first royalties. So I make it a writer's press in that, for one thing, and this is one of the negatives, is I don't want to proofread. I didn't get into this to proofread, nor did I get into this in order to sift through manuscripts and judge which one's the best and which one isn't any good, and which one deserves publication and which one doesn't. So I had no plan for how I would proceed to determine who would be published. But it didn't seem a problem because I had this one, and Bori Proper was preparing his, and George Salas was chosen. And so, but between this time, and I think George Salas was not going to be ready till later in June, and I had a little bit of money, and so I thought, wait a minute, let me get Skulls of Istria back, and I got this back from Riverboat, and now it's mine again. This was a natural because in Istria there is this Dance of Death fresco from I think the 14th century in a church about 20 kilometers from here, and so this was the next book, and then there was still some time, and books were selling, and so I thought, okay, my first three published novels was a trilogy. They comprised a trilogy. It was The Driftless Zone, Billy Verite, and then The Sleep of Aborigines, and they were all out of print. I thought, let's make them a big, fat, pocketbook, and of course it's a pants pocketbook because it's pretty fat. The cover again by Jason Snyder, and the back is just me and my whimsy. What I was doing was practicing having a press. But another point, by this time, I had written my publisher here and asked him what I would have to do to keep publishing. He said, don't. I'll make you an imprint of my press, and you won't have to worry about anything. And that press was Amalietti and Amalietti. Amalietti and Amalietti. And that's their chakra symbol. And so I was working with them, but Amalietti was actually more or less a one-man operation, like I am, although he probably knew more about making covers and so on, but he had people doing that and doing the typesetting, and he had his arrangements made. And so I would let him know what was coming, and because he was ill, he was not publishing anything of his own. I was very happy to have something new coming out. And they were all mine, and so I was on a spree. Although I'm not a wealthy man, never have been, and soon wasn't. So that led to the establishment of another principle of the press, and that is, we will make goals, but we use the money from sales to print the next book. And so the only exception to that being when we have to pay royalties, we pay the royalties as well. But so that's how we proceeded. And so I got this done, and then finally George Solis's book was ready. If you want to know what I think of this book, you can just check his Riverboat copy and this copy. I have a blurb on the back of each. And so this is it's a first novel. It's an excellent first novel. And if you want to know more about it, you got a Chris Villa introduction. And, Chris Villa is a generous person, but he's not going to put an introduction, and he's not going to put his name on a book if he doesn't love it. So it's a fine book, unfortunately. And also, George himself did this cover, which has probably been, until the second Chandler Broussard cover, which we'll get to, until that point, this was probably the favorite cover of our readers. I did a couple of contests, and this won the first one, and the second one, I can't remember. I think it might have been tied for second. And he did it himself. So that leads me back to the notion of it. What is a press that's run for the authors? Well, the main thing is they can do whatever they want in terms of creating the book. No cover will be made without the author approving it, because you never know when your last book is going to be printed. I think David Vardaman probably thought, okay, I got a book out finally. He's 63. He never stopped writing, and this is a terrific collection of a very short novel, 100 pages or so, and 13 short stories. See, everyone who reads it must converse. A very, very fine review by Noah Clemens there. Um, but Barterman was happy. He said, if I, a pocketbook, he was thrilled with that. An old idea. Both of us wanted to go back to the pocketbook, and so he was really happy with it. He loved the cover, and he said, I'd be happy if you could sell 20. I'd be, happy. I don't care. So, let's say that was the last book Barterman ever published. He'd always be happy because he had it, and he liked the cover a lot. A lot of other people like the cover, though if you put it up against the Salas cover, it loses. I'm not sure why. I prefer the Vardaman cover, I think, because I love the painter. But this is an excellent cover. Now the next thing that happened, this is late June. July hits. Who knows what that means? I don't know what that means. But it meant that we're waiting for our next book, and our next book was Unidentified Man at Left of Photo, a real masterpiece of comedy and metafiction, or whatever you want to call it. The author himself calls it exploratory fiction, but there is no one word that covers it. Yet, it was not ready. I didn't know when to tell him, so I probably just told him September. In the meantime, a memoir that I wrote called Arjuna and the Good Snake. This is the book that brought in some money and nearly was published by a press in the United States. And I thought, well, okay, I did all that work editing it, and because the editing suggestions were all terrific. And I have the same book here. We tried. That's how my original work in Slovenia was actually in English. We didn't know how hard it would be to try to sell in the United States through Amazon, but it was literally impossible to take a book from Slovenia and sell it through Amazon. Literally impossible. Couldn't be done. I haven't tried since then. Haven't had the urge. So out came this, and I was very happy with it. This is the first time Zach Tanner worked on one of our covers, and I was just talking to him. I talked to him a lot, and I said, "Do you know how to Photoshop?" Because this monkey here, this is a bonnet macaque, the most common monkey in southern India. In northern India, they have the somewhat larger rhesus macaque. Well, this creature stole my Coca or Pepsi Cola, and I had a good shot of him drinking it. But Zach photoshopped the alcohol there because I had problems with alcohol, and that's discussed a lot in here, as are several other things. There's enough on our page and previous things. I'm not going to discuss every book this much. In fact, I'm going to start speeding up so that I can finish this. So that was next. So we have now we've got Jeff Bursey. Now Bursey's an author, and he's an extremely good author. And he said, I have a book, and this is another way we're writer oriented. If I know a guy is an excellent writer, I don't want him to send it to me to approve. And so I told Jeff, you gotta, if you really want to publish with us, yeah, I'd be happy to, thrilled. But he wanted me to read it. I said, no. And I did read it after we published it. This is a really good book that should be on shelves all over North America, at the very least. But I don't know how he's doing there. I've sent him, some boxes of books, and we've got time. People will know this book. The the next book we published, finally, Borut Proper was in print, and I found that sometime recently Riverboat put him in print too. I'm pretty sure. We have another book. This is the first of a trilogy. We have another book coming out by him later this year. Okay, so that takes care of only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's half the volumes we printed. Soon after that, Vardaman finished another novel last summer, and it's a short one called April is the Cruelest Month, and it is one of my all-time favorites of the, let's say, early 20th century inspired 21st century Dada, surreal, cruelty novels. And on the other side is something he wrote 10 years ago, which is best described as Jim Thompson-esque, from what I've heard. It is also a proto-feminist novel of odd Midwestern crime. Let me just finish off Vardaman here. And we printed a book. The print of his of some of our books is relatively small, and I haven't gotten a lot of complaints, but I've had a few comments and a couple of people who've said, I don't have the, it's too hard for me to pick up, every time I look at that book, I open it and I see the small print, so we did a large print version just for the fun of it. Of one book, David Vardaman's. We have the author photo is Zachary Tanner's son, Marcel. We had a lot of fun making this book. We didn't make a lot of copies. Sold one, but that was that. Another oddity was, you can see a little bit more about this later. This is written by a Serbian woman who is going by a pseudonym because this is an intensely erotic and extraordinarily well-written epistolary novel. Letters exchanged between an academic woman in Novi Sad and an academic woman in London. And it's illustrated by Zach in a sort of a throwback to the Victorian underground samizdat erotica. And it's a fine small book. Okay, we'll end one portion of this, which will be, the longest one. Then my father always loved this book. He saw a version of it that was much less in manuscript form 10 years ago or something like that. But since that time, I've been working on it, adding to it, and Jason Snyder, again, he did the work on this book, and it doesn't just have a beautiful cover and spine and back, but it's got an extraordinary title page. That is just gorgeous. And throughout, Jason did the work on the photos. Here's a nice page. There are a lot of illustrations in this book. There are new chapters from way back when, and so far, from what I'm hearing, nothing but good things about it. But the way it looks, I would walk into a bookstore and say, "How much? 10? Yeah, give me 3." I really love this cover and layout. It's important for a book to be as good looking as possible. But sometimes a book can only be a certain number of ways, and The Assassination of Olof Palme, an anthological novel that is ostensibly about Olof Palme, and to some degree is, but more broad than that. It's also, ironically, for an anthological novel, these are the contributors, and this is Giuseppe Pinelli, who is the accidentally dead anarchist spoken of by Dario Fo. And, I love how Jason Snyder, who did this one too, did the, the background looming death mask of Giuseppe Pinelli. This is basically a book about anti-fascism that takes place mostly in Europe, but has a lot of characters from the Reagan era. And, it came out in 2 volumes. This is how they will look from now on. That was back when, I need to tell you what happened there. Before Amelietti did the paperwork and all of that, to make me an official part of his press, and that's something that could still be done, but the people running his press now are his ex and his son, and they really don't know all the things that need to be done, and I haven't been hearing from them, and so I've created a separate kind of nonprofit, and so that's what I am right now, a nonprofit organization. This is a postcard from Seshu Foster, and you can read on there, East Los Angeles Dirigible Transport Line. That's the title of a novel of his that just came out this month that is worth the money. Believe me, it's an extraordinary piece of work. I've been following the creation of that for years. He works with Arturo Ernesto Romo on this, and they've created just a stunning book. And it's not mine. I can't take credit. So the last thing I want to tell you is I had a wonderful experience reading a chapter by Stephen Moore about an author I'd never even heard of, Chandler Brossard. And I read that thing, and sometimes it just resonates immediately. And I knew I was going to love this guy from what Moore said. I mean, there's something ineffable about it. And I knew I was going to love Chandler Brossard. He has an anti-Vietnam novel called Raging Joy's Sublime Violations. I said, I got to get that. And then he has Wake Up, We're Almost There, his novel of the 60s, and his novel of the 70s, As the Wolf Howls at My Door. And these are the big ones. And I had to get my hands on them. And I went to the internet, and I found the first Brossard I found, the only one on European page, was for, I don't remember which book, but it was 2,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds. And so I found out that man's out of print in large part. His 2 earliest books, I think, are still available. But the masterpieces, that's a mini masterpiece, and it's the best book I've ever read about Vietnam for a variety of reasons I've gone into many times. And then this is a replica copy, our latest publication, of As the Wolf Howls at My Door. Replica because that was the cover that Brossard chose, and that's the back matter is Brossard's writing. And so why not? This one, well, there wasn't such a great cover in the first place, but this, I talked about covers before. This is now the #1 cover by our press. Zachary Tanner did this. He also wrote an introduction to this and the other, As the Wolf Howls at My Door. These are massive paperbacks. They're not as long as Eddie Vegas, but they're done with better paper. And it's a thicker paper. So this is 540 pages, but it is just a beautiful, beautiful book. And this will be the style in the future for all of our Brossard books, because Zachary Tanner has dived into the Brossard life and literary life, and has learned a lot about him, and has found books that were out of print and should not be, and there's much more to say. I have to do a separate Broussard section, but this is my celebration of the first anniversary of Corona Samizdat Press, and maybe this should be the last one I show you, even though it wasn't the last one I printed. But this is just a beautiful book. I guess I should also say that I love the introduction here by Zachary Tanner, because he did the play on the Woody Guthrie guitar. This book kills fascists. However, in this book, he has a Zen and the Art of Buggery, and I can't say which introduction is better. They're both brilliant, and so we're going to have more Chandler Broussard in the second year, and we probably won't make a huge deal about the second anniversary, but I'm happy to say that all of these books, except the Solace, are still available, and there's nothing to say about the fact that the Solace book is it's still available from Riverboat Books, so there's nothing to worry about there. It's highly recommended, not just by bums like me, but by experts like Chris Villa and Noah Clemens. So indulge me in my story of my press. It's not the kind of thing one does often, at least, visually. And, well, look for what's coming, because that could be a whole another 37-minute video. Thank you very much for your time.